Quick Heretic update. This is going to be the third iteration of this model. So if you're not familiar with the whole Heretic model we're working on, this is actually a 3 foot by 2 foot by 4 foot unit with stand that's basically a self-contained automated bioactive arboreal enclosure. So I'm mostly going to go over kind of the changes that we've made on this third iteration, some updates we've made, stuff we've discovered, and what's different on this one versus the previous two models that we've made. The biggest thing is kind of the heating and lighting components. So we changed up some of that stuff in this unit. We've actually got the 220 watt Wilbanks radiant heat panel. This thing's super strong, it's super compact. We've got an 80 watt DP projector on this side. We've got the 7% Shade Dweller UVB. That is a 50 watt halogen on that side. I may put a 25 watt in there, I'm not sure yet, but we're going to run this one in C2. The previous one, basically we just had the probes kind of zip tied to the cages, trying to dial in the temps that way, but since this Perch is where this deep heat actually aims, we've got the probes covered on the side, so they're actually routed from the back. Cord comes down, and this is kind of the target area, so we have the probe as close as we can for both the deep heat and the halogen. We've got a probe cord cover now for the radiant heat panel, so nothing's kind of loose and flopping around in there. And we've also got the Jungle Dawn up front. I have the cord actually routed up and going out through the ceiling, so there's hardly any cords inside the unit, so I'm trying to keep as much out as I can there. And it's got dual plant clamps on either side. And this is the revised Mist King location. So I've been kind of playing around where to put that. This is the shorter straight fitting. I don't know if I'm going to keep using that one. I'm going to test it and see if it sprays like I want and where I want. But the idea behind this thing is to essentially modulate the humidity or keep it at a particular level that's set via your controller. So underneath here, you've got your charcoal filter, and you've got a 4-inch inline fan, and that actually routes out the back. So if you walk with me back here, it comes out the rear of the stand, up this hose, and into the back of the unit. And what happens then is that air flows through here. When that probe back there is triggered, essentially, so if you want to keep your humidity at 60%, you set it at that. And that fan, when it gets too high, because this is going to be full of soil, so it's obviously, you're going to have moisture coming out of there. And when that level gets too high, that fan kicks on, it pushes air across this unit, helps dry it out, and it exhausts through the top. So this is a kind of a new feature too. The old one, it had the first one had a fan on the side, which was totally unnecessary. And then the one after that, the second unit, has some slots up front, but I'm trying to keep it as sealed as possible. So this is the new exhaust for it up here. I'm trying to think what else. Oh yeah, perch placement. That was another big one too. If you look in here, you can see all the little holes I've got in it. So I've been kind of playing with where the perches are, and I think this is going to be the ideal configuration. So the reason there's so many heating components in here is because this thing is tall. So just relying on a radiant heat panel, technically that panel is strong enough. We ran it wide open, and we managed to heat this perch to 95 degrees, which is kind of incredible, but also that creates too wild of a gradient. You have nuclear hot here, and you have too cold down here. So what these two other heating components allow us to do is kind of offer more light and heat sources, but it aids in this heat panel by actually projecting heat further down, so this unit can work less hard. You can keep this upper perch cooler, and you can still heat these lower ones. So typically the one up front, that's just going to be where they hunt. These guys, they just kind of cruise around on them. The center, it's going to be close enough to those heating elements as well as that heat panel. You can get the appropriate temps there. So that's kind of why we've configured it this way. And once I make sure that's exactly where I want them, we'll be able to add windows. So I do want to have a window option. It's just tough when you have all these multiple perch positions. You really have to shrink the windows, and they're almost kind of pointless. But once I verify that that's where I want them, we'll be able to put the windows in them too, which also makes them look pretty cool. This one does not have the Mist King in it. We do have a giant wolf spider, whoever that is down there, our little friend. So typically, if you if you've got a single unit or a primary unit, you'd option it with the Mist King. So you'd have your pump bolted down there, and you'd have your reservoir sitting right here. So it's got all the holes for the tubing to run out, and it goes up to that fitting up top. But I've already got two Mist Kings at home, so I'm just going to link them together. So all these units are going to spray at the same time. Since this stuff's all automated, it's going to pull the humidity out appropriately. So it won't matter when and how much. But I'll play a bit with that. But this is where the Mist King controller would be too. So you've got your primary one over there that operates the ventilation. It also shows the temp over there too. And the Mist King, this is going to be the unit we're going to use for it's the timer unit. It's not going to be the one with the sensor, because what happens is when you use the Mist King that senses minimum humidity levels, well, as soon as this thing dries it out to the appropriate level, the Mist King comes on and it's constantly fighting itself. So you're making like a little, I don't know, a little storm inside there, which is not what you want. So you want this thing to spray at whatever, settings you have timed on it, and it'll be able to just pull the moisture right back out, but you'll be able to kind of dampen the leaves and stuff like that for whatever plants you've got in there. It's kind of a weird one. I've actually put a heat panel in the stand. I think it's totally unnecessary. I did it. I just wanted to see what would happen if you could keep the intake air the same temp as whatever you want inside. I mean, we've been using it at home. It just sucks ambient air temp right now, the ones we have at the house, and it doesn't affect the temp in here. But I just figured while it's a test unit, I want to see what happens if I can heat this stand, if it does anything up here, positive or negative. So I think it's totally unnecessary and probably won't be in the final iteration, but it's cool just to experiment. Door closers, instead of using, these are kind of vestigial holes over here. I machined in it just in case I needed. I don't know if the PVC version is going to use them or not, but these latches are pretty cool. So I like those. It's super minimalistic. It's really clean. I actually recessed the front in this one because some people don't like to look at hardware. I think it's cool. I like looking at screws in the front. Apparently that's the thing people don't like. So I just wanted to, as an experiment, make one and see what it looked like without it. So it's super clean if that's, the aesthetic that you're after. So it's all screwed in actually from the side, so there's nothing visible in the front. And the stand on this one's the same way. So I don't know if I'm going to keep that or not, but this is, also this one's got the wood look HDPE upgrade. So that's kind of a big deal for this one too. I'll probably make that an option as well if that's what you're after. So we'll have the standard unit in PVC, like the stand down here, and then I'll have this as an upgrade. I may do the stand front as well. It's just tough optimizing these particular sheets to fit all this stuff on them. So I'm trying to keep the cost reasonable. But this is a super expensive material, but it looks freaking cool. What else did I do on this thing? Oh yeah, it's actually going to have links, kind of like how our hanger system works. So instead of just sitting the stand on top or trying to line up pins and all that stuff, it's actually got a recess in the side. Once you have these two units sat on top of each other, you pull these screws out, you put your acrylic plate in there, and then you screw it back in, and it ties these two together. So it makes it kind of one solid unit that way. But I also put little shutters back here. I was trying to keep the stand as sealed as possible, which, once again, it has a charcoal filter. It's not like it's going to be sucking in any kind of dirty air, so I think this is a bit over the top, but the idea is when this fan comes on, it's supposed to pull air through here. These little louvers are open, and when it's done, it'll close, so it's just trying to keep the stand as contained as possible, but I also think that's another way over the top thing that doesn't matter, because you got to have cord slots and stuff, so it's never going to be perfectly sealed, so I don't think it matters. Gosh, I think that's it. I've actually made this a lot larger, and I've chamfered this edge, so this thing's heavy. You're not probably going to move it as one unit, so you're going to have the stand separate from the top when you're putting it in your house or your office or whatever, and you're setting it up. So the one thing you'll have to do when you receive it is set the top on the base, and you'll attach your hose. So I've made this as easy as possible just to get that one clamp on there. But yeah, all the cords are all run out the back. It's super clean. This will use a Herpstat 4. I'm going to use all 4 sections of that Herpstat because it has the heated stand. But typically it should just have those 3 heating elements, and you'll have a free slot essentially in your Herpstat 4. But that'll control this whole thing with that one thermostat. Obviously you'll have your fan controller, and if you get the Mist King, if it's your one single unit, you'll have that as well. So this thing is super duper neato. Yeah, so we're going to take this thing home, set it up, make sure this one works like I'm thinking it is. Like the other 2 we have, they work perfectly fine, but the idea is to optimize this where it works great for everybody and not just our situation at our house. So we're trying to, fail-proof everything where you can buy this thing anywhere and use it anywhere and it works as it should. So far so good. Another difference in this one is we're also going to be able to option these with these PVC perches or carbon perches. These perches are actually from the reptile perch, which was formerly Specialty Enclosure Designs. So I figured this one, since it's got all the wood look stuff on it, to try and put naturalistic looking perches in there, I think would be kind of a cool touch. But yeah, big dirt window obviously, so it's pretty cool. When you fill this thing up with substrate, you can see all the soil behind it, and you can see the different moisture level in it. It just looks cool. Yeah, so I may or may not make the stand door with a lock. I don't know why you would need it with a lock, but I just machined one in it because I could. I'm trying to think, what else did I do in this thing? Yeah, so I guess that's it for this thing for now. I've got one more design that I'm going to build, and it's probably going to be this same configuration, but once I have this next one done, I think we'll have them, released and available for sale. So we're just working out pricing, because obviously you got to know all the heating and lighting components in it before you can do all that, and what variants we want to offer it in, colors and all that stuff too. So we're almost there. It's looking good.